Everyone, welcome. And so welcome to the core 13. Um, I, uh, I'm going to be flipping my screen into two things that I'm going to look at. One is my slides, my PowerPoint slides, as it is the tradition every time, pretty much. And the other one is also look at the syllabus, and I'm going to go back and forth. So my objective today is to introduce myself, introduce the class, introduce the assignments, start learning about you, and then finally introduce also the topic of marketing. In terms of going in depth in what is marketing, we probably won't go too much in depth in this today, but I want to start kind of going at it. The idea of my teaching is that and I guess that's just the idea of teaching, is repetition makes things better. All of you are musicians and you have experienced that. The more you repeat something, the more you practice, the more you rehearse, the better you become at playing the instruments. And so there will be some repetition. I'm not going to repeat every class the same thing, but there's a number of things that I will be repeating. Um, I would say, just as a summary before we dive into more details, the more difficult thing in this class, um, I would say, is identifying opportunities. So that's what you will find the most difficult thing. I will start explaining it today, next week. I'll probably explain it for 4 weeks, and it will take probably 4 weeks for everyone to understand what this means. But after 4 weeks, you will understand. And I know students in the past, one of the things they really like about this class is understanding the concept of opportunity as it relates to business, because it makes a big difference when you understand it well. I was just mentioning about my name that it spells slightly different, so just make sure that you have the C and the K. I oftentimes like to start the class with a quote. And so today I have a quote that is a little, hopefully inspirational, because it says, laziness kills ambition, anger kills wisdom, fear kills dreams, ego kills growth, jealousy kills peace, doubt kills confidence. But if you read these from the right to the left, in fact, you find the solution to the problems. Ambition kills laziness, wisdom kills anger, dreams kills fears, growth kills ego, peace kills jealousy, and confidence kills doubt. It's very important, I think, to have sort of a good mental state to be a good business person. Being a business person is what I teach. And specifically, I teach marketing. But not only I teach marketing, I also teach strategy and I also teach entrepreneurship. In fact, I will also be the instructor in your next class and final class. So I teach the last two classes of Maya. I teach the marketing class and the entrepreneurship class. The most important function within entrepreneurship is probably the marketing function. And so what's interesting about this is therefore I'm sort of the person responsible for you to really understand this function prior for you to go into the class of entrepreneurship. And I I think you students do extremely well with this. It's extremely satisfying to teach this class. In fact, I've been teaching for this year is my 31st year. So 31 year starting. So I've been teaching for a long time, and my favorite class to teach is the MIA class. It has been like this since the beginning. But having said that, my least favorite class that I've taught, and I probably taught over 100 class, was also a MIA class. There was one group that was just not my cup of tea. But as I said, that's because people were not interested. And this was a long time ago. This was a long time ago. It was towards the beginning. There was just a group of students that they didn't know why they were there. Since then, it's been just very enjoyable because the people have cared to learn. And so it makes a very, very big difference when you teach someone that cares to learn versus someone who is passively just trying to go through the process. And so learning to be a business person is a very important skill because it's a skill that you can use in any of the activities. I teach in the business school or the classes, and I teach people that are engineers, and they oftentimes do better if they are engineer with an inclination for business. They better if they are lawyers with an inclination for business. So it's the same thing. If you're a musician with an inclination for business, you will become a much more successful person. So that's why business is so important. Hopefully, after the fact that you've been for a year and a half a student in the Maya program, hopefully you agree with this. And if you don't, I hope to convince you that this is important from the lens, looking through the lens of marketing. Um, One thing I want to bring up is the fact that CSUN has have been at CSUN for 25 years. CSUN has really grown into an amazing university. So many things have improved. Best college for your money, Money Magazine, top 25 institution, the Knowledge Review, number two leader in diversity, Wall Street Journal, part of the largest university system in California, the CSU systems, 330,000 alumni, music department ranked in top 25 in the world for the music department. And then the Nazarian College, the College of Business, is really getting a lot of kudos. And this was number two in 2024. And now in 2025, it's even better. I think we moved into number one in California. And one of the reasons is because we do a lot of innovation inside this college. Anyone knows why it's called Nazarian by any chance? So it's called Nazarian because someone made a donation, and the person who made the donation is David Nazarian. He used to be one of the biggest donator in USC because he's someone that is an alumni as an undergraduate to CSUN and alumni of postgraduate to USC. And as business people, he's a business person who go to USC and you succeed, eventually the USC is very organized. They have a large number of marketing people, more than 30 marketing people that are trying to catch the alumni to get a donation and to get support versus CSUN has two people that do that, the marketing for CSUN versus 30 plus for USC. So they get much more donation because they're better organized, I suppose, more resources and so forth. And eventually, this gentleman, David Nazarian, realized that if he was giving money, even less money, to CSUN, he would get even more value than USC. Because if you give money to USC, you get a plaque with your name on it. But if you give money to CSUN, the same amount of money, you get the entire school that has your name. So that was a big investment. And again, this decision to give money to the university, obviously it's very philanthropic, but it's also an investment and it's also marketing. So marketing is something that I see everywhere personally. Um, we could look at the news today, and I will tell you that most of what is happening is because of marketing. Someone else would say, well, not really, it's follow the money. Well, marketing and follow the money is very similar. Marketing is what creates the most money. In fact, in a business, the person that is the most well paid is a marketing person. And like I was saying before, the most well paid um, lawyer is the person that doesn't do much law, is the person that markets the firm. You know, the same thing for a sports athletes. Sports athletes make a lot of money. A soccer player, Formula One driver. But the people that make the most money are the managers of these people because they do the marketing. So marketing makes a lot of money because it's directly related to sales, and it's directly related to the performance of the company. So the more what you do is connected directly to the performance of the company, the bigger your position and the more money you will be making. I unfortunately may sound bad to some people because I do talk a lot about money. But again, marketing and money is very closely related. I'm not talking a lot about money because I have a personality of a pig, and that's all I care for. It's just because in business, it's something that you need to care for. Obviously, we all have different thresholds of how much we think a lot of money is, but I think it's important to recognize the impact of money over the health of a business. And with money, you can invest, and you can invest in making things that make people more happy and more satisfied, and that's also what's very important. In fact, let's look at some numbers. Which job do you think is the hardest one to get? The CEO of Air France, the CEO of Delta Airlines, the CEO of the American Red Cross, the CEO of General Electric, the CEO being the president of CSUN, a professor at CSUN, being the president of France, the president of the USA, or the president of Russia, which one do you think are harder to get? If you had to rank all of this, which one would you think is the hardest one? So one says the US president. I mean, I would say it's definitely up there. Maybe one would say, no, the Russian president, because these people are on average 20 years president versus as an American president, you can be there 8 years as a maximum versus in Russia, there's no limits. So those people, they have a way of staying in power. Yes, Ashay, what do you think?
I would say the president of CSUN.
The one that is harder to get,
Yeah,
more difficult than being the president of America.
yes.
Oh, well, I think it's not easy to be the president of CSUN, but it would be much harder to be the president. The bigger the organization, usually the harder it is to get because the bigger the organization, the more power, and the more power, the more, you know, in some way, the president of the governor of California is also in charge of CSUN. And in some way, the president of America is also in charge of California. So there's like a pecking order of someone sort of like a embedded situation where there's a smaller person and a bigger person and it goes bigger and bigger. But what's interesting is whatever you think the bigger, most difficult job here is, let's look at how much money do they make. So Air France CEO makes 3.3 million, a Delta Airlines CEO makes 2.7, an American Red Cross makes 500,000, the GEO CEO makes 2 million. But then you'll say, yes, but that's what they make as a salary. What about the bonuses? So it is true. The Delta Airline CEO may get a bonus every year of $10 million. So then it's 10 million plus 2.7. So it's true, they make much more than this. The American Red Cross is not supposed to get a bonus. So that's much more fixed. But General Electric also 2 million is you know, that's a big company. General Electric is a bigger company than Air France or Delta Airlines. Why is this person making less money? Well, they also have a big bonus. Okay, the CSUN president 332,000. A professor at CSUN makes, on average, let's say 100,000. The French president makes 180,000. So it's like, you know, it's a what? Um, some 90% less than the president of CSUN. So it's like if you're the French president, you make less money than the president of CSUN. And that's much harder to be the president of France than the president of CSUN, I can tell you that. The US president makes a little bit more than the president of CSUN, right? And the Russian president, strangely enough, makes 125,000, which is just a little bit more than a professor. And the Monsanto CEO makes 11 million, but also they have huge bonuses, which probably double, if not triple their salary. So what's interesting is why would someone make $30 million a year and another person make $125,000 a year when in fact we thought that the Russian president was much harder? So the idea behind this is it's all of this is very subjective in a way because if you're looking at the amount of hours, the amount of risks, the amount of effort that it takes to get to those positions, the amount of responsibilities is it varies, and so it's important to see the the value of money. How much was a dollar? What could you get with a dollar 10 years ago? What can you get with a dollar now? So to be a good business person, you have to have a good understanding of money and be able to guess. You know, there's a show on TV called The Right Price, and they show different products, and you have to guess what's the price of this product. You've all seen it. This show has existed for what, 50 years? Everybody knows it. That's a skill that you need to have as a business person. A business person is someone that is used to manipulate money and used to know more or less what things are worth because you're going to be making purchase decisions. You're going to be making investment decisions. Obviously, you need to be better at the value of money within the context of your industry, but understanding money and not being sort of scared of money and all this is very important. Again, this is a skill that I think is important for marketing. It's a skill that I think is important for businesses. And I think it's a skill that's important for entrepreneurs, right? So all of these different groups are the one that I'm talking about. So in this class, you will be participating by, you know, sharing your opinion, answering questions, working in your group on the group assignments. You will be working on two mini quizzes. There will be assignments in between, and there will be presentation. Quite a few presentation. If I'm not mistaken, there's like three presentations that you have to make. No, four presentation, sorry. And so altogether about four presentations. So lots of presentation. All of these presentations are helping you building some kind of skills in order to improve the fourth presentation. So there's sort of different subject that you will be presenting, but eventually I'm trying to build some kind of confidence for the last one. Obviously, everyone in this class has different um, ambition, different objectives. Some people maybe just to terminate the class and to graduate, and a C plus may be good enough. I know there's some students they want to win the best graduate of the year of the program, and so therefore they're going to try to keep their A. And there's people in between, and so I'm very aware of this. What's very important is to be honest to the rest of the group in order to not give false intentions, and therefore then be in a group where you're not caring as much as everyone else. Being fair to the group is very, very important. That's something that I really want to stress right now. But what is work is you decide what is work. And so the analogy to this is like climbing a mountain. You can climb to the top of the mountain, you can climb to a certain height of the mountain. You don't have to, when you say I'm going to go for a walk, it doesn't mean that you're going to climb the Mount Everest. There's a scale of difficulties that you could take, amount of time, amount of resources, amount of training, and that you may take. And obviously, so in life, I think that's what's very important is to make some objectives, look in the future, and that's what you've done because obviously you took your time to do a master degree by looking at the future and thinking, today I'm applying, tomorrow I'm starting, next year is my last year, this class is my last class. So there's a process, and you're going through the process of the time and you're taking some risks because obviously you could be doing other things. You know, what's very interesting is I'm a professional professor, so I see that I went to school, then I went to college, then I became a professor. So I'm a student all my life. All my life, I've been a student. And I enjoy it because it's part of my personality. But there's some people, they only go to the university from 20 to 23. And some people re-challenge themselves by coming back afterwards to do a master and do another degree in something else. I think it's very important to see that your brain, your knowledge, your experiences is made of all the things you're going to try to do in between the time in your life in order to harvest a better person than you. You can work every day on yourself and the next day do something better. So what I'm trying to say by this, and maybe a complicated way, is that to succeed, I think it's a balance between working very hard and working very smart. If someone just try to put hours and hours and hours into something, they may really achieve 50% of the maximum that they could achieve. And if someone is trying to cut corners and make their life easier, obviously now people are using the internet, and beyond the internet, they're using AI to work smart, and they're trying to cut corners. And this smart working may be saving them some time, maybe saving them some effort. They're not working hard enough, and therefore they're missing on the opportunity. So this philosophy of having a good balance between working hard and working smart is what really is going to make you learn the most and gain the most from this class. Um, Overall, I think I'm not a bad person. Overall, I think I'm someone who is very student oriented, and I enjoy teaching because I enjoy this opportunity to share some of my knowledge with someone else for this person to gain from this, from the, from having heard me say something and inspire them going into a certain direction. I've done this for a long time and I've had some success with this. So I keep doing it because it's been a great relationship for me working with students. So your mission is to come to class. So it's very important to come to class in order to gain from this experience. Um, my students are not the one that I would say I need to tell them to come to class. After doing it for so many years, that's something that seems to be ingrained in the personality of the people that take this class. So that's great. Participate. This is where I get different cohort that participate more and some less, and that can always be improved. One of the things, obviously, that is great is if you use the video camera in order to be part of the class. Um, People don't, I don't know how much do they know, but it's kind of tough when you don't have too many people on the video camera. As I'm looking at right now in this class, this is the class as of the first day. I don't know if it's going to be like this for the entire class, but which beats two, three times any other course before in terms of putting their video. Um, it's not, it's not even close. You guys are blowing away everyone. Let's see in the future if this keeps on going. Obviously, it makes a big difference, and that's something that I know the professors really enjoy being able to know you, see you, and so forth. If by some coincidence, you have something that you would prefer not to be seen. I know, for example, there was a lady that had a baby and she was sometimes breastfeeding. So obviously she didn't want to have the video on while she was breastfeeding. Um, but so there's some circumstances where maybe the video is not there and it's perfectly understandable. But all the time, I don't know why would someone not have the video ever on. Now, when you're making presentations, remember those 4 presentations that you will be making to everyone? I'm just asking if everyone who's presenting, even the people that never have their video on, would have their video during those presentations. The reality is I've never have to really ask the people presenting to have their video, but I'm just bringing it up just in case it gets forgotten. But again, that's something that seems to be sort maybe of a human understanding of things in life. Is if presenting, you put your video on. So it's been great, but at least at that time. So now I'm sounding like a gendarme, like a policeman, talking about rules and all of this. I won't spend a lot of time doing this, but I need to spend some time just so that way we are on the same page. So let's jump into the syllabus. I'm going to stop this just for a second and jump into the syllabus because I want to show you what I think is very important in this syllabus. So you've all had it. The first thing is that this syllabus gets sometimes edited with some corrections. And when I do this, I let you know that there's an updated version. So I let you know by sending an email to everyone or making an announcement. So it's not hidden and secretive if I make a change. Normally, no, I think I will be, if I'm making changes, they will be very small changes. And so those small changes are going to be mentioned that there won't be much to write about. Oh, I changed 12 pages or whatever. I don't expect that. There'll be small things. But if I do, I will let you know. In fact, this is the third rendition. And if you go online in Canvas, this is the one that you will have access to. Normally, the other one, I've deleted all of them. So you should not be able to still look at the first one, the second. It should be only the third that is available. So in there, you have the basic rules of the Zoom, and you were able to come here today, so you don't have a problem. If you want to meet with me outside of the class hours, how you go about this, you just contact me and we make an appointment, or you come during my office hours if you wanted to meet with me during my office hours because you can't be on campus. Then we could make sure that I know that I will be meeting with you via Zoom, and we can do that during my office hours as well. So all of these things are possible. The reality is I'm a very simple person. If you communicate and you let me know and we have a discussion, there's so many things that can be done. Communication is key, I think, for people to understand each other. Now, there's a mention of the textbook. And so just this is what's important to you. I'm putting it kind of blue and bigger. is the book is you can choose either the current book, which is going to be $150 plus, or you can use an older version, which can go down to $10 or even less if you get lucky. Some people I know succeed to get it for $6 or whatever, the older version. So if you are getting an older version, you will still be okay. There's nothing that I'm going to do that older versions are going to be a problem to get an A. I do this because I think it's 150, 180, $190 is a lot of money, and versus $10 is much more reasonable. So I want everyone to have the best financial opportunity as possible. So just remember this: if you pick an older version, as long as it's the same author, the same book, and published in 2014 or after, it's good. So if you get the version from India, published in 2016, is it good? Yes, because it's after 2014. If you get the same version from 2015, published in Africa, in Burkina Faso, is it good? Yes, because it's after 2014. If you get a digital version published in Spanish, and you know Spanish, you speak very well Spanish, and it's digital and it comes in, I don't know, it's published after 2014, it's good. So the answer is, if it's published after 2014, it's good. Okay? So let's do a quiz. If the colors are black and white and not in color, and it's published in Pakistan in 2018, is it good? Yes. All right. So that's pretty easy because it's going to work. Um, no, I mean, obviously, try to find the best balance between the most recent and the price that you can afford. I think that will be the best. That's what I would recommend. To um, make things kind of easy for everyone, what I do is I made this, the one from 2021 here, the 16th edition. I put the table of content. And so you will see that the table of content from 2014 till today are pretty much the same. What they do is here, for example, I give you a pretty retarded example, but that's what they would do. Designing and managing products. In the latest edition, it's not called designing, it's called managing and designing products. So they're going to slightly change the title. And by changing the title, most of the time, they can create a new edition and charge $10 more, right? Again, it's marketing, it's money and all this. Everyone is getting more expensive bills. So everyone is trying to find a way to make more money. But that's pretty much the only thing you will see. So could even that the title, which was sort of the third bullet point title, now becomes the second bullet point? It's possible too. They may just rank order slightly differences and all that. So if you buy a different edition, that will be the only thing. It's maybe the order and a slight modification of the title. But beside this, the content is all the same. The other thing is they may change some of the example. Maybe in the 2014 edition, they're going to talk about Coors Light versus in the 2017 edition, they're going to talk about the iPhone. So there's slight differences, but it'd be the same content, just different subject examples and all that. Okay. Do you have any question on the textbook? No. Okay. So I think I tried to make it super clear, but I just want to always make sure. So that's not too difficult. How you go on Zoom, um, try to have your camera, try to discuss. So the quiz is online, and the quiz is 12% each. So there's two of them. The quiz are inside the scanner, and the quiz are the beginning of the class. So I don't, personally, I feel better for the students to take the quiz and then we finish with a lecture versus starting with a lecture and then we stop and then we do the quiz. Um, I feel that uh, you can better concentrate in the class after you had the quiz versus having you all worried about the quiz that's coming at the end of the class at the end of the class. So I picked it this way, and again, in the past 15 years, nobody has complained, and just a few people have confirmed that this was the best way. So I keep doing it this way, I thinking it's better. Now, the group presentation and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the schedule because that's the best thing to do is to go in the schedule in order to explain the group presentation. So at the end of this comes the schedule. So I'm I'm hoping you looked at it, but I'm going to review it very quick with you. So the first week, we discuss everything about this class and introduce yourself to the subject and to the content and the syllabus and all that. Then this Saturday is we're going to be meeting with Playita, which is the client for this class. As I posted in the announcement, we've had clients for the past, what, 7 years, 8 years, working with artists of different level artists, but most of them young and sort of very junior, I would say. Most of them were selected by Vove, which is the entertainment agency of CSUN, that is a club that helps young artists get a label and help them get a record and license and all these different things. These people work as an undergraduate, and one of the difficult things for undergraduate is they usually work the last year of their undergraduate degree, so which means that the year after, it's a bunch of new people. So there's very little institutional knowledge, which means that people get trained one year and the next year they're better and the next year they're better. That's the learning curve. There's no learning curve. They get better at the end of the 6 months that they've been doing it, but then they leave the university and it's a new batch of people that come in. That's what VOV does, and they work on the tactical aspects for the artists, which they select. The artist normally gets a scholarship, some money, or some funding in order to help them. Because I don't manage this, I cannot say if they got money this year. It's possible that for once they didn't get money, or maybe the money is just in getting resources to support their cause. I'm not sure, but they're getting support free of charge. The Vove organization, since they select which one is the artist and best band of the year, then they provide this to us towards the end of January for us to meet with this client and come up with a list of recommendations to help the client. So I don't think that's too complicated. It's just a basic consulting things. Probably many of you have helped an artist, or maybe you've helped yourself, trying to help this artist book concerts, organize the music, organize the collaboration, do the recordings, and all this. Is this kind of manager and so forth. So we are more the strategic perspective, so which means that we're looking at the long-term growth for the artist, which they cannot get from the undergraduate students. Why can't they get this long-term vision from the undergraduate students, do you think?
Because they move on and graduate?
No, because the undergraduate students don't have the maturity, nor the knowledge, nor the education to make them think in the long range planning of an artist. It's very day to day. It's week to week type of thing. This projection in the time is more of a higher executive role. And so higher executive roles are usually given to people that are more senior, more experienced. And so that's why they thought it would be great for the Maya, who's made of older people than the undergraduate in general, people with more experience, more maturity, more critical thinking than the undergraduate in general, will be able to come up with this. For an undergraduate to come up with a long-term planning for an artist, it'll be extremely difficult. It'll be very difficult for an instructor to teach them how to think this way. You may be thinking you think you are good at thinking this way now, but you will see, having done this, 15 years in a row, that the Maya students are much better than the average undergraduate students, but there's still a pretty big uphill battle to get you to think this way. In the next class, it becomes automatic because it's been sort of drilled into you to think strategically versus tactically. And so that's a big word that you may not understand today, and it may take 2, 3 weeks to really see the nuance between tactical thinking versus strategic thinking. But it's much more different role. It's almost like you have to think about the decision that are taken in in a I don't know in the Pentagon, the generals making decisions in the Pentagon under the Secretary of State and the President and all these people, the type of decision they make versus the decisions that someone will make in some camp, military camp, inside the kitchen, for example. So one is much more narrow and much more detailed versus the other one will go into a much broader, much more strategic type of decisions because in the world that we live in, there's people with different role and position and status. And so those different stages dictates the, the level, the weight of what everyone will be taking. So undergraduate oftentimes are asked to take a lower weight and postgraduate are usually asked to take a bigger weight. Okay. So Saturday, therefore your role will be to take a much bigger weight by asking questions that are much more strategic in this Saturday, it's, when I compare the first meeting with the client and the second meeting with the client, the biggest difference is the amount of questions that the client gets from you. The first meeting, there's less questions. The reason is that you haven't done much research on that client. You haven't had the benefit of the first interview. So this time you'll have the first interview. We'll all be listening to what is it that this client is doing, have they done, what are they trying to do, what's their dreams, what do they want to achieve in 5 years themselves, what are the different dynamics. Obviously, here, having done a bunch of bands before, it's oftentimes very complicated because there's different people in those bands with different vision. Not everyone is 100% symmetrical in terms of vision. There's even different people in terms of work ethics oftentimes. There's some people that are more involved, and there are some people that are a little bit more behind and wait and see, right? And so the more you have people involved, the more you have wait and see people. It's like a committee. If it's a committee of 2 people, people are going to make quickly decisions. If it's a committee of 20 people, they're going to take forever to come to an agreement. So the same thing is if you have a band, it's harder to steer. However, there are leaders in this band, and so the leaders will be coming on Saturday and sort of giving them what they think is the most important. So that's this Saturday at 9 a.m. in the morning. And the reason is that the main leader of that band is also a student at CSUN and is also a master student. He's not doing MEA, he could have been. He's doing another degree, but it's a master degree, which actually starts on Saturday. So his first class is this Saturday, and his class starts at 10:30. And so that's why we had to kind of squeeze ourselves before he starts the class. And we will have different people from this band coming to also discuss what they think is the future of the band, how they see the vision, what is their music styles, who are the artists that they like in general, what were they dreaming when they were little, what do they think is expected from you, and all of this. So what's very important is in this interview, we need to sort of try to go as deep as possible in the mind of the clients, the various people that will be attending this event. We need to read their mind. In a way, we need to be sort of, personal, maybe a little private, maybe a little intimate, is because we don't want to give these people recommendations that don't fit them very well. Imagine you're a tailor and you cutting a dress or a suit for someone. You want to do this based on exact measurement of the person. The more it's the measurement of this person, the more the dress is going to look like it fits perfectly. So that's what it is here. Is the more we get to know this person, the better we're going to be at making a recommendation that really fits that band. So the band has to play their role, which means that they have to communicate, introduce, and feel free to talk about anything and tell us as many things as possible. This meeting will be recorded because sometimes they say something and we don't pick it up right away. or sometimes it's not so much what they say, what they don't say, or maybe their behavior, how they look, how they frown, and how they look like puzzled or something like that. So there's also visual responses that we can pick from looking at the recording again, which we can use in the next meeting where we can, because you see, the hardest thing about doing an interview is not creating the question, is to address the answers with new questions that we could not think at the time in order to dive deeper into this person's brain. So we have to be good at this on the spot, on the moment, go and go in their psyche in a way, in their darkest area of their mind, because an artist is a creator. And so those people sometimes they have a very hard time voicing what they really want to do. It's not so clear. So we have to make it clear because that's our role. Okay. So I'm going to accelerate a little bit now because you want little by little see the flow. Then the week after we come back, and this is where you have different groups that start making presentation. So they are presentation where you're presenting a subject, a topic, like you're making a documentary on a subject. So the first subject that will be documented is Wednesday the 4th. Okay, wait a second. This. Okay, so the first subject covered is Wednesday the 4th, and it's group 4. So group 4, I've got the group 4 here, right here. It's made of Kenyon Anu, Adrian Casas, Ashay Mathieu, Anthony Ortiz, and Theo Vida. So group 4, looking at the syllabus, what you're supposed to do is therefore, oh, so just a second. Yeah, it's to talk about Schopenhauer on Milgram. So these people are very interesting authors, which you would find are people that are very celebrated authors. They are dead already and so forth, but they've had a huge impact, and probably in 100 years, meaning 100 years after they pass away, they still will have a huge impact. They talked about various subjects that are extremely important, and it's important that you define what they are. So what are the concepts that these people talk about? What is the main contribution that they have had in the literature, in the world? What are the implications of what they've done? Is it used by anyone? Is it used in business? Is it used in our society? How is it used? How do you see what they do conceptualize in our society? Can the concept be used in business or so forth? So now I'm going to ask someone randomly, why do you think I'm asking you to do this? And in fact, I'm going to ask Kenyon Anu, which is group 4, and will be inside this group. Why I'm asking you to do a presentation on these subjects?
I think you're asking us to do it so we can have our own personal experiences doing it and compare it to our work experience.
So I'm asking you to do this because they are important authors, and you will gain something by doing it. And in fact, I can tell you the truth. I'm a simple person. There's been maybe 20% of the students that would, a week after or 2 weeks after they do that, they randomly send me an email and say, oh my God, I did this presentation and I'm coming up with things in my life that I would have never thought related to these people because I didn't know them before doing this project. And now I'm using it. And so now I see why you told us that these are people that have changed the mind, the life of millions of people, and why we should know about it because it's useful for us. So you're right. So that's the primary reason. I think knowledge of important people can help you, and it can help you in business and so forth. But that's not the main reason. The main reason is because I'm giving you a subject which may seem very simple. In fact, you probably can do this if you want it in just a few minutes using AI. But the problem with AI that, and I'm not doing it because of AI, I've done similar subject for the past 15 years, and I've done this in the other classes, is because I want to know who you are, what you got, what's inside Kenyan, you know, what's inside Theo, what's inside Ashe and Adrian and Anthony, what's inside these people, you know, do they have a personality? Do they have an opinion? Can they think outside of the box? Can they reflect on a subject that they don't know? Can they be extremely critical? Right? You know, it's your capacity to to be a person and to be yourself and not following the consensus, but coming up with your own formulation of something that you've learned. So what's very important in life is to learn a subject, but another one is to understand the subject and use it in your own life, but also to see that you should have an opinion. You should be free to have an opinion, and you should go and say anything that could be related to this and that you find that is important. Why do I want you to do that? Not because I want to build a group of opinionated people with personality, but because I'm trying to turn you into a consultant. So what is a consultant? Well, for this class, you're the consultant for the client, and you're coming up with solution for the client. But to come up with a solution for the client, you will not be able to find the solution through AI. You're going to have to really criticize the status quo, come up with something that is new and better, that has never been done before. That's what a consultant has to do. A consultant is the dreamer, you know? It's this creator, but it's not just a dreamer based on taking a shower and dreaming. It's dreamer based on solid data. So what you do is you collect the data and you make the data talk. You get inspired by the data. You visualize the data and you use this data in order to visualize the future. You become the leader of the future by coming up for the future. So that is something that I want to see when you discuss the presentation of those subjects. They will be groups that are going to be phenomenal. It's going to be, I think, I believe, I think, I believe, I think, I believe. Based on this, I think, based on our research, I think this, we believe this. We talked about it, and through our discussion, we found two different aspects that we thought was very interesting. So that's what I want, is a think, believe, think, believe, versus some transcription of a little bit Wikipedia, a little bit ChatGPT, a little bit this, a little bit that. So this presentation is not about your skills at collecting information, but it's your skills in communicating your opinion on the subject. So now, now I'm going to insult you, but eventually you will see I'm not a bad person. But I'm lucky if there's 50% of the class that understood what I just explained right now. So it's much more difficult to learn about something and voice a deep and critical opinion than it is to repeat something. So I'll give you an example. Which one is easier to do? To create the next best song in America, or to play a song from 20 years ago that was the best song 20 years ago, right? So it's a lot easier to play, I don't know, Michael Jackson something versus trying to beat Michael Jackson. But when you're a consultant and you work for a client, you have to beat the market. You have to be better than what everyone has done. So you have to create something that is above what is already existing. And so that's the exercise you're going to do. With these clients, you're going to find what they should be doing that will put them into a leading position where that they realistically can lead, right? So we're not turning every client into, I don't know, Lady Gaga. We're not. But we're turning them into the best that they can be by using the data in order to substantiate what we think is the best. So that's what this exercise is about. And obviously, the first group is the one that's going to show if they have a personality and if they have an opinion and if they learn the information and then voice their opinion by telling us, beyond the aspect of just reading a book, right? So any question on this? So I'm just going to go through and look at the concept. So group 4, the concept was on this date. Then we have group 3, which is on the 18th of February. They're presenting one single person. The one before, remember, there was 2 authors. On the week 5, it will be group 3. So group 3 going to group 3 again, who are the people? Alexander Gallardo, Charlie Halls, Susan Nguyen, Caitlin Pellina, and Justin Weredu Pong. Okay, so these 5 people will be discussing something really cool, which has to do with Bernese. Has anyone heard of Bernese? Okay, so, and that's just the way it is I've never had a MIA cohort that's heard of Bernese, never a single person. But the people that will present will tell you that he's the most famous, he's the #1 Wikipedia most famous, successful public relation, marketing person that's influenced the world in terms of way of thinking. It's kind of funny. But then if you ask the most powerful people and you say, give me the list of books that you want to say that you want to recommend people to read, that you want, that is politically correct, that is socially desirable, they'll give you a list. Then you say, give me the list of the book that you should be really reading, like the one you recommend to your friends and family members. And they will put Bernese inside. So that's what this is really cool, is because he's a very, very famous person, but that most people don't know because there is some learning that you should be doing for the sake of really understanding the world. And Bernese explains the world. It's pretty dark in the sense that he started in World War I, then World War II, then he died. He was almost 100 years old. So he served, I think, until Bush father, maybe Clinton too. And so he's someone that's covered a long period and has had a huge impact on the American culture. And so these people will read that and they will present Bernese. There will be someone in the group, one person, normally there's one, that gets blown away by this author. And then they said that they read as much as they could in order to prepare the presentation. And then 6 months after, I'd get an email and say, oh, I've read all these books and this was great. I learned so much. Do you have another one like Bernese that you recommend? And I have other people to recommend. But anyhow, these are people that are changing the world. And so it's very important that you read them. The group 3 will be reading them, and only the group 3 will be making the presentation. The rest of the class will be listening to the presentation, which is kind of a shame because they won't get as much benefit as the one that prepared it. So the people that prepare are the one that get the most benefit. Okay. Why? Well, because I don't think you want me to make you do all of this preparation. There's a lot. And so I'm just trying to be parsimonious, balanced in having a good amount of work. However, here's what happens. If you look inside the syllabus, it says there is points for writing a summary on the subject being covered. I don't know if you see it here. I'm trying to, yeah, it's right there. The section here, summary of the concept review. So the summary, which means, and I'm going to address you just in a second, Ashay, but I'm saying the summary is when someone presents Bernese, and let's say I think it was group 3, you're presenting Bernese, this will be your subject presentation, your concept presentation, but then you have the concept summary, and it's the people that are just listening to the presentation, they just have to write 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, not more than 1 page, just to show that they were there and that they've listened and they pay attention, and then they upload this summary. The reality is everybody gets and 100% of the summary, as long as they upload the summary, it's just to show that your brain was on. The light was on while this person was presenting. Because the reality is really too bad that there's only one group that gains from having being forced to discuss Bernie's and tell their opinion. It should be everyone, but I want the other one not to be too passive, listening to those great presentation and gaining from it by paying attention, writing those short summary. So that way they can gain something. Again, they won't gain as much as the people who prepared it, but they will still gain something. All right. So two assignments, present the concept. You only do that one time. And then 4 times, because there's 4 groups, you summarize the presentation of someone else's concept. Okay? Ashay, you have your hand up. You have a question.
Out of curiosity, because this is not my group, but Bernice, what was his primary discipline, and was he influenced by Guy Debord, because you said it was quite dark, or Sartre?
Well, in fact, I think it's a good question, and I hope the people that will present will really pay attention to this. What was interesting about Bernie's is his mom, Bernie's mother, was the sister of Freud.
Mm.
And so if you know Freud is someone that has been depicted as doing very good things in the sense of coming up with the concept of the psychoanalysis and being able to go into people's awareness and the fact that they have their own censorship and the small you inside you and the norm from the environment and all these decisions that are unconscious and trying to explain unconscious decisions. At the end of the day, the simple way to explain Freud is Freud says that there is a large percentage of decisions that we make that we have not processed. That we just make them because we have part of our brain that makes decisions unconsciously without us processing it. And so he explains the unconscious and unconsciousness, and he went into the psychoanalysis, and now there's even people that puts you to sleep and do some kind of sleep analysis through MRI from the flow of the blood, from the flow of the energy in your brain. But there's also people that do hypnosis analysis. Is they put you into some kind of hypnosis in order to make you speak. All of this is in Wikipedia and it's scientific and all that. The only thing is sometimes it's a little bit stretched to a point that you wonder if it's not lost. But for the longest time, there were people that saying that Freud was BS, and some people saying Freud is misunderstood, is absolutely real. The reality is now in 2025, 2026, we know that actually Freud was actually correct in many ways. But the problem with Freud is he was a little bit, can I say, deviant. And so therefore, there's a lot of psychoanalysis that has been used in order to make people deviant into lifestyles and beliefs that are very questionable. So that's another subject. But there's a level of ethic within the Freud, and which went into probably sister and went into a Bernays, which is everything goes as long as you pay. So if you say, oh, can you create people to hate, I don't know, Russians? I want you to hate Russians. Then Bernays will come up with a business plan on how you will make a certain country, I don't know, South Africa. South African hate Russians. So he'll come up with this. You could come and say, no, I want people to consume more drugs, more cocaine. You'll come up with a plan for people to consume more cocaine. I mean, Bernays is responsible for smoking, the increase of smoking, the consumption of diamonds, many, many, many different things that are today perceived as not really positive for our society. And he's also very famous for having had some American presidents being elected on questionable situations. So all of this you can find it. It's published, published by Harvard and by CSUN, by everybody, and it's just there. And it's just once you find it out, you go, oh my God, this really happened and so forth. So it's very interesting. And obviously it has all kinds of theories that are still used will be used next month. And in fact, probably most of the stuff that are the most powerful that we live today and we lived last week and we will live in a month are originated from Bernese. So that's the type of things. So uh, the truth is, when my son was 10 years old for his birthday, I bought him the book of Bernese. And if now he's 18 years old, and if you ask him what's the best book he's ever read, he'll probably tell you it's Bernese. So some people get it, read it in one small afternoon, and he's published many different books, but the one called Propaganda, or there's another one called The Eden Persuaders. Um, yeah, so if you work in politics, you learn Bernese. If you work in marketing, you should learn Bernese. If you work in journalism, you should learn Bernese. Why? Because you want to be knowing what's going on in the kitchen behind the curtains, right? You don't want to be manipulated and just be uh, kind of the victim. So Bernice explains all of these things. And Schopenhauer and Milgram also explained a lot of different things, which open your eyes. So these are eye opener, and you can present them just on the surface, like in Wikipedia, it's just presented in the surface, or you can analyze it, criticize it, go deeper and show your opinion. There's some groups that are just so amazing because it's all about opinion and it's fascinating. They may be wrong, they may be right, but what's important is they have an opinion. There is a backbone. There's a person with a backbone, and they have their own personality and opinion. They're not regurgitating Wikipedia and something that is just stale and just fact-based without too much analysis of what they think. So I'm turning you into a consultant so that way you can come up with your own ideas of what this person should do and convince the client and me and everyone that you have the answer to the question. And that's what it is. Same exercise. If you can do it for Bernice, you can do it for the client. That's what the exercise is about. Okay? You should be fair. I know the students do like this class because they get challenged. And every group is trying to do better than the previous group. So we've seen these two groups. What's the next subject? The next subject, oh no, sorry, I went backwards, so I have to slide down. Bernice. And then this one, which is the music industry and AI. So this one is the same thing. It's just going to talk about what's the music industry, what's AI, what's the benefits, what's the problems, what's the evolution, what do you expect to happen, what do you recommend. Here again, we need to hear your opinion about the use of AI in the music industry and what good and what bad could be generated from this. And then there's one more. And then the next one is to talk about, Tesla and the electric cars. What do you think about the electric cars? You know, is everything about the electric car good? What's behind the climate change agenda, the energy agenda, the globalism agenda, the industrial agenda, follow the money. Why are all these people buying Teslas? Why are all of these people not buying Teslas? What is going on? And here again, obviously that's the last one. And so you have to come up with an opinion. And this is group one. Okay. As you can see, it's kind of strange because we go from 4, 3, 2, 1. So then you're probably thinking, oh my God, that's so nasty. Because I thought if I was group 4, I would go last. But in that situation, we're going first. Why? Because there is a justice. What do you mean? Because there's another presentation where, in fact, it would be group 1 presenting first and group 2 presenting second and group 4 presenting last. It's this one, and that's one starts on the 28th, which means it starts next week. What? Next week already? Yes, next week, group 1 will present a past client that the MIA students, consultants presented. So what they will do is I'm giving them the past presentation. I'm giving them the past video, whatever elements to help them present matters, for them to present it as if they were the one who did it. So the question I get every time is, do we have to use exactly verbatim the exact PowerPoint that you sent us? The answer is no. You do not have to use the PowerPoint. In fact, if you wanted, you could use nothing from the PowerPoint and come up with your own, which means that you can use 0% or you can use 100%. I mean, I can't give you more flexibility than that. You do what you want. My recommendation is this is an exercise, which means that you're going to be trying to perform by changing more things on that presentation. You're going to add more work to yourself. So my recommendation is try to present, to do the least work as possible on that situation by not reinventing the wheel, which means that if that presentation is 90% okay and you want to change 10%, change 10%. But then if you want to change more than 40%, more than 30% even, that's a lot of work. You don't have to change it. I will not grade you, evaluate you based on how much have you changed. So this one is kind of weird. It's the opposite of the other one in the sense that I'm not looking too much at your opinion here because I cannot expect you to have a strong opinion on something that you have to do in 1 week. I would be obnoxious. I would be a bad person trying to get you to have an opinion on an artist that you've never heard of on 1 week. It's possible to do, but I don't want you to do this. It's too difficult. You already have Playita to work with for 2 months. And there is where I want to hear your opinion. But the exercise of playing the role of as if you were the consultant of the past presentation, you don't have to create so much. It's not necessary. Create as much as you want. The more you want to change, that's okay with me, but you don't have to. Okay. Make it easy to yourself. Try to reuse the information and try to understand the essence of a consulting presentation. So it is very, very true. And life isn't very, very unfair. But I mean, the minute you're born, life is unfair. Very unfair that if you group one, that's much more difficult because you have to do it for next week. And it's very true that group two, which is doing it, on the 4th of February for another past client, which is called Lottie, has 1 more week than you to do it. And they've seen you present the week before, so they can gain advantage by seeing someone and hearing my feedback and all that. So it is true. But it's also true that I will be expecting more towards the end of the class than as much as I'm expecting at the beginning. So I'm not, I don't know, inexperienced. I know that, 1 week, you can't perform as well as someone that had 5 weeks to prepare, right? Like the group four, which will have 5 weeks to prepare the last presentation. So if you go to the last one, see group four, they're presenting hardcore, and it's the 18th of February. What? That's so unfair because they get 4 more weeks than us. How could it be fair that a group gets 4 more weeks and we only get one? Again, we have to work with the time. And again, I will be taking into account the fact that there's some people that will have more time, more experience in order to make this presentation. I've done it again and again. Never a single student out of hundreds of students have complained that I was bad at seeing the difference between these. I will be treating these very fairly based on the timing. But what you need to understand is these exercises are very complementary. In one way, I'm giving you a subject that you can find a ton of information, like Bernie's and Schopenhauer. And then you can learn about them and find all the different perspectives. And then create your own perspective and come and present the existing perspective, the actual knowledge, and then share your own perspective. That's hard to do, but easier to do. It can be done. And then I give you a totally different exercise, which is to present a past client as if you're performing, like you're performing the song of your favorite artist by sort of trying to repeat what these people did the best as you can. By doing these two exercises, you will start 99% of the students suddenly figure out what is expected from them when they present the client, playita, which is the combination of the two. Is there's the process, the professionalism, the different parts that you will see from the different group presenting. And then there's the critical thinking of a subject, which is sort of intellectual and all that. That's what a consultant is someone that uses data in order to make decisions by coming up with something that does not exist and is better than anything that exists. Okay, here's the exercise. And it's these two combinations. In between all of this is the presentation, which is right here, and it's called the Valley Hive. And it's sort of in between. What it is that instead of everyone presenting the past artist from Maya, is you will be presenting a client which is not a music person. And why do I do this? Is because I want to define something. Remember, I told you the most difficult thing and the most important thing you have to learn is this concept of opportunity. This exercise, which happens the 7th of February, so it happens pretty quick, is you have to define the opportunity that this company, the Valley Hive, was provided. And out of 4 groups, usually have one that figures out. And 3, one that figures out very well, one that is sort of almost perfect, and then 2 that no, don't figure it out. And so are you a masochist person? You want to punish 2 groups? No. Is I want everyone to understand it. After doing this exercise, everybody understands it. Before doing this exercise, I have to come up with something that puts everybody on the same page. And this exercise is exactly what it does. The Valley Hive is a company in the valley, San Fernando Valley, that makes honey. And that's why it's called the Valley Hive. And they make honey like everyone makes honey for the past 5,000 years. And they came to us, to my class, to my master class, and said, we need your master class to tell us what we need to do in order to be better at selling our honey. And so we looked at their business and we came up with a massive disruption, an idea based on data that is making their business, if they follow this idea, very likely to become extremely successful. So instead of being stagnant, they can become one of the best business in the honey in Southern California. This, when you see the presentation, it becomes pretty clear what it is. And the client confirmed that this was the best thing that he's ever heard of in the honey business, having been in this business for more than 30 years and being the president of the California honey producers. He's never heard such a good idea. So the students came up with this idea and it's really disruptive. It's very simple, but you have to find how to present it. There's a way to spin it. And so you will see a video of the students presenting it. You can try to do the same thing. I will give you the PowerPoint. And here again, you will pretend to be the consultant for the Valley Hive, and you will get the answer, what they did, and you will try to emulate and get inspired by this by replicating somehow this presentation. And by doing this exercise, it will become crystal clear if you get it yourself, or if you get it from practicing it and me telling you where we missed it, it will become very crystal clear what is an opportunity that now that you can replicate for the client playita, right? And that's why the second meeting comes after this, the 25th of February, is because by the time the weeks before and all the overlaps of this training and experiences that I'm trying to give you, this boot camp that I'm trying to give you, you have start to really come up with those amazing ideas of what you think the client should do. And when we meet with the client, you will have much better questions because you'll go into more details, asking questions to fine tune what you think the client should be doing. Obviously, you're going to have to ask those questions in a sort of discreet way without spilling to the client what you want to do and to the rest of the class what you want to do because the rest of the class is going to get some hints if you tell the clients what you want to do and all that. So you want this to be questions that are not too obvious in what you're trying to do, but you will pick the client's brain at that time in order to refine what you think should be the project for the client. Yes, Ashe, I see you have a question.
Yes, I do. You see how the it's kind of I need clarity on where it says the client case. We have HarperCourt for Group 4, but above it it says presented by Group 3.
So yeah,
So
so
why is
the
it written like
Bernie's is a subject which we discussed just a few minutes ago,
right? I
and that's
know,
presented by Group 3.
right.
And
So
that's totally different from ARPCore, which is a past client, which you will be presenting.
okay, so it has nothing to do with
No. Bernie's is one thing, ARPCore is another one. So the only one thing that nobody asked me here, and maybe that I want to clarify this, is when students have to make a summary, is a summary of the concept. So when, for example, you, Ashe, in group,
for
no, you're in group 4, when you will be presenting, I think it's you presenting Schopenhauer, I guess.
HarperCourt.
Yeah, but as a subject, I think you present Schopenhauer. Yes, that's correct. So you're presenting this one, Schopenhauer and Milgram. When you will be
Oh,
presenting those
okay,
subjects, the rest of the class will have to write their summary, right?
okay,
So the rest of the class will write their summary, but when you present the past client, there's no summary to be written.
okay.
So when they will be presenting matters or Loti or Hardcore, um, the past clients, there's no summary to be made, but
I
there's
got it.
summaries to be made just for the subject, just for the presentation of,
Concept review.
yeah, just for those concepts. So that's when there's summary to be made.
Okay,
Um, wh- why? Because I have to pick a battle. Do I want students to be passive when someone makes a presentation of subject that is so important that they should do it themselves? No, I don't really want people to be passive. I want them to pay attention, right? I don't want just the one presenting. Then the one presenting is the one that gains the most. But then when they present the clients, that's also when they gain, someone can gain the most by listening to these people. Yeah, but then it's a lot of summaries. It's a lot of counting beans and so forth. I don't want the students to be overwhelmed by all kinds of small things that they have to do. So I had to pick, and I picked half. They don't have to do the summary for when the past client is being presented, but just when the subject is being presented. So it's just, I think that's good enough.
okay. So that's two separate
Two
presentations.
separate presentations, yeah. And then the Valley Hive is a separate presentation, but those presentation happens in groups.
Right.
So
I
you don't
see.
have to be there. So the reality is group 1 will be finished at 9:45 and group 4 won't have to come until 11:15.
Okay, so
And
we don't have to watch the
you don't
previous.
have to watch. These are private. They're private
Okay.
with groups. And the reason they are private with groups is because I give a lot of feedback. And it's a
Right.
feedback that I want to give personalized to the group. Like I said, there's some
Okay.
groups they're going to present, and I'm going to say, perfect job. You understood what was the opportunity. You clearly made your argument. All of this is something Schopenhauer talks about, making arguments. So that's why we have it before. Everything was clear and all that, your presentation, your communication. I'm delighted. The only thing you should change is this and this and that and that. But then let's say group two comes and group two, it's a mess. I want to feel free to tell them that it's a mess. But
Okay.
but if all the groups are there and they hear me tell group two that it's a mess, people get self-conscious and feel like, oh my God. Versus when I do it within the group, people don't take it so personal. In fact, they want me to give them as much feedback as possible, even if it's negative, because they know they can gain from it, because the objective is to learn from this so that way they don't do it in the next presentation. So I'm just being conscious to people's ego. And so that's why I break them down by group. So people don't have as much ego when I can criticize. And I'm not just a person that criticizes. I say when it's good and I say when it's bad. But I feel better if I don't offend anyone. And that's why these are separated.
Well,
Versus,
that's very kind of you.
yeah. And so then you would see that everything else, when you're in group, I try to say the positive and the negative, but I won't say maybe as much negative because I want to keep everyone's mood good. But when we do the Valley Hive, that's where I can let myself go for the benefit of the audience, and the audience don't get offended, never been offended. But if I was to do this with everyone, I think some people will be offended. So it's not necessary
Right.
because that's really
Okay.
not the point. So I've done this a long time. I'm trying to press the buttons that gets results, not the one that makes the result go backwards. Um, yeah, there was I think it was 4 cohorts ago. There was one group that was so upset. I mean, it was probably by February 15 or whatever. They're saying, oh my God, this class, I don't understand. There's a lot of understanding and doing things for the sake of. And they complain and complain and complain. And because I had done it 10 years before that, the Professor Andrew Somani was telling them, no, it's doing it. We know people feel that way. And that group eventually said that this was the best class they've ever had afterwards when it was finished because they figured it out down the road. And so it's a down the road, it's a process. You sort of being grinded here. I'm making you go through the food processor and you're just being and you just have to go with it. And then you'll see it all comes together and nobody gets hurt. It's all good. And it becomes extremely obvious that it's all good when you go into the next class, the last class of the Maya program, entrepreneurship, because we go straight to the point in that one. And everybody goes, what I wish you could do week one and week two here gets done in week one and week two in the next class. But it's impossible to get it done in week one and week two here because you haven't gone through the process. But I know that once you've gone through the process, what I'll ask in the next class, I get it done with some students in 1 week. So that's the result. It does work. We get there, but we have to go through this class and all these different steps in order to get there. Now, the quiz are the content until we get to the quiz. So it's not cumulative. So the final is only from the time of the quiz one to what comes after. So I don't add everything in one quiz. It's 90 minutes. It's a multiple choice and also an essay. So I'm going to have to say this many times because there's always, when I have 30 students, there's always 4 students. So hopefully I don't have 4 students with 20, 21, but there's students. So the essay, each question is 20%. And there's students, so I'll ask a question is, should you always increase your marketing budget? Something like this, let's say. And then you have 20% to answer this question. There's people that think that by saying yes, that's the answer, and they're gonna get the 20%. There's some people that are gonna write, I don't know, 5 paragraphs, and there's some people that are gonna say, yes, I think so. Obviously, yes, I think so cannot be evaluated as the same as someone that came up with 5 paragraphs. So what I'm trying to say is take the time in the essay, there's only 2 questions, to write an essay for the answer of those essay questions. It should be essay question is an essay answer. But no, they write yes or they write no. I have 4 people that do this. And sometimes and most of the time, the answer is not even yes or no. Most of the time, and I should not tell you that now because that makes things easier down the road, but most of the time, the answer is it depends.
It depends.
And so that's why when the answer is yes or no, I mean, it's like 50%, I guess, but I can't give 50% for such a short response to an essay. So then I feel very bad. So I've said it today, and I will try to remember to say it to you again, because otherwise, I think I even sent an email like 5 minutes before the quiz just to make sure, or an hour before, say, remember, write an essay. Don't write just a short answer on this. Um, that's the biggest problem. People do well with those quizzes. Um, the people that don't do well are the people that rush. They rush in answering the essay, the multiple choice. Uh, then this specific week of the 14 is I meet with a group again independently, and they will be presenting it's a month before the real presentation, is they will be presenting their draft of their presentation. So they come on the 14 and pretend that they finished their presentation, and they pretend they present as much as they can. The reality is, I just tell you my statistics. There's one group that is 90% done. Another group that is 40% done, and then two groups that are like 30% done. But it's better than nothing. Everybody has something done and made some progress. So that way I can concretely talk about what needs to be done next. Um, I think we're good. Then I go to the last one, which is the final presentation to the client. And there you have minimum 20 minutes, which has never happened. And maximum is 24 minutes, which is 99% of what people do. People actually want more often time, but that has to be a maximum somewhere. So it's 24 minutes. And um, yeah, like 90% of the groups wants more than 24 minutes. But you can't. You have to stick to the maximum. And you present with the PowerPoint, having had all the experience of the various assignments and exercises that we did before. And usually it's not usually, always is amazing. Each group is remarkable. There's some groups, sometimes they're just, it's too good to believe how good they are at that point. And some of the groups, they catch up, but it's great. Should everyone be in the A range in there? Yes, I would say 90% of the time, people are in the A range at that time. So I'm not promising anything. This is what has happened year after year. Okay. Do you have any questions now? We're pretty much done with the syllabus. You can always go back to this. And like I said, I've used pretty much this since what, 2012 or whenever, 2011 when we started. And there's never been an issue. But it takes maybe 2 weeks to kind of figure it out. Oh yeah, the one that I want to talk about is
I have a question.
yeah,
Um, is the client the final presentation is to the client, right?
to the client.
Uh-huh. Where do they make a decision on what presentation fits best for them? Can you tell
Well,
during the final presentation?
well, in
Like,
fact,
oh,
it's
they give
interesting.
me.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Nobody ever asked me this question. It's a great question. And it's an interesting question because the client asked me, and never a client asked me to actually rate the presentation. So they asked me, they said, oh, we would like to evaluate the presentation to tell you which one we thought is the best fit for us. And I said, okay, that's a good idea. Why don't you rate it? So they said they will, but I don't know. Sometimes people say things and they don't do, right? So who knows? But it'd be interesting to see. But the reality, based on my experience, is Number one, all the clients, all of them, 100%, are overwhelmed by the quality of the work provided by the Maya consulting groups at the end. They can't believe, they're very proud, and they feel very privileged having received so much attention and see the quality of the decisions and recommendation given and the support and the reasoning behind it. So they absolutely love it. But they say, thank God this is recorded because I'm going to have to review it again and again with a bunch of people because I don't think I understand everything. The reality is what you will present is oftentimes goes above their head for the most part, that they have to discuss it with other people in order to see all the facets. Oftentimes those clients are, 23, 24 years old. And I don't want to insult anyone if, in case anyone is 24 years old in the class right now, but or close to 24 years old. But 24 years old people are still kind of wet behind the ears. And so a lot of the information they will receive is they may not have the exact maturity, but again, you giving them a path, a process to go there, and you're recommending what they should do the first year, the second year, the fourth year, the fifth year. And the reality is, when you start talking about the fifth year, it's so far down the road for them that it's overwhelming. So they understand the first and the second sometimes, and then they have to digest the rest. Okay. So does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
it answers the question.
Yeah. So, oftentimes we end up being the best judge. And I'm also the judge that will guide you to tell you, oh, this is realistic, this is unrealistic. We don't want to do unrealistic things for these people, otherwise it's not useful. And then Dora, you've been raising your hand. Dora, go ahead.
I just need a little bit of clarity on the practice presentation for Valley Hive.
Yes.
Um, but leading up to that, how would we be getting the information on that beforehand, or are we getting it right then and there, and then we kind of have
No,
to
no.
put?
Thank you for asking this question. Perfect. You're giving me the opportunity to go to the next thing, which is that if you go to, um, if you go, let me see if I can get it. Is it there? Just a second. I have to make sure. So if you go to Canvas, so I'm going to go to Canvas. Oh yeah, that's why it was not working because Canvas was not on the thing. So if you go to Canvas, you'll see that you have a file, you have a section called Files on the left. So you see I'm on Canvas right now. Home, announcement, modules, grades, people, quizzes, and then files. If you click on files, then you have the past Maya client. So if I click on the past Maya client, you will see the various clients that I've discussed just before that you're supposed to. Like we're talking about the first one for group 4, Mados, for example. So here you have the video of Mados, of a past Maya group that presented it, and then you have the PowerPoint that you can use. And again, I'm sorry if I repeat myself, but it's not because I'm senile and I don't realize it. It's because 100% of the time, the student asks me to repeat. They'll say, can we change the PowerPoint? The answer is yes. Can we change the entire? You can change 1%, 100%, 22.6%, whatever you want. You can use it all or use it none. But I would recommend to use as much as you can because it's not necessary to create something new. You're not going to be rated on that. You will see the video of, they usually have 4 groups, 5 groups presenting. So I picked one of the group and one of the PowerPoint, and then you'll see how they present it. There. Does that answer your question, Dora?
Yeah, I was actually wondering about Valley Hive, but I saw
Oh, Valley
that.
Hive. It's okay, sorry. Sorry. So then you go in there and you look for Valley Hive and the same thing.
Got it. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Yes. And so I give you a tip for the Valley Hive. Okay, so, and I think I give it every time, but maybe because it's too early and it gets forgotten. But here's what happens with the Valley Hive in a nutshell. And I don't feel bad telling you this because I'm not helping you too much or cheating, but what happens with the honey is we realize that everybody sells honey based on the quality of the honey. Okay? So for the past 5,000 years, if you and I are starting a honey business, we're going to say that our honey is better because our bees are better, because the purity of the honey is better, because the flowers we use is better, because of all of this, and we're going to brag about the quality of the honey. And what's the problem with this? That's what everyone is using. So everybody's sort of playing the same song, and therefore everybody hears the same music. Therefore, you don't not differentiate it. The other point of differentiation is people will also say, I have the cheapest one. So a lot of people they will buy honey from overseas. And so they're going to take honey from China, just to name a place. And in China, they will make the honey 10 times cheaper than in America. And so therefore you go to the store and you have the 9.99 honey, and then you have the 24.99 honey. Some people will take the 24.99 because it's more expensive, so they figure it's better. More expensive, it's got to be better. They don't know. They just use the price as a better. And some other people will say, you know, I'm cheap. I'm going to buy the cheapest one because I want to save. And what the heck? Honey is honey. There's no difference. And so that's another business. So this is essentially what everyone is doing, and nobody's breaking the code. And so the students, I mean, the students were not crying, but almost crying because they were telling me, Professor, this is an impossible job. How can we come up with a disruption in an industry that has not been changed for thousands of years? We just CSUN students. You're thinking who we are. We're not Warren Buffett and all Bill Gates and Elon Musk. They can't come up with ideas to disrupt a 5,000 years industry. I said, no, you can. Do more research. And then they came back, and that was 2 weeks before it was due. So very end. And they had a big smirk on their face, and they said, what we found that a lot of businesses in the food and beverage industry have been disruptive by coming up with a flavor that they added to the product. So it's like you want to sell more whiskey, do a whiskey with vanilla flavor. Do a whiskey with chili flavor. You want to sell more, I don't know, vape tobacco? Do a vape with a flavor. And so people will consume the product, which is the same as everybody else, but just because they were the first one to have a flavor. It's like you want to sell more vodka? Do a flavored vodka. And so I say, okay, so what are you going to do? We're going to do a flavored honey. We're going to take the honey and we do flavor honey, and that's going to be the disruption because, in fact, we have the data to show that once the honey is flavored, it's increasingly more desirable. People want it much more. And so very few people do flavored honey. Obviously, this is a project that was done a few years ago. I apologized because since then, there's not many companies now that do flavored honey, including the client. The client now does flavor honey and they're doing very well. But anyway, at the time when we did this, there was not that many, and it's inside the report. And so what is it that I want you to bring here is the opportunity of identifying a fact in the market, which is um, um, it's called latent, which means that nobody can see it. Nobody does flavored honey. But once you come up with the concept of the flavored honey, that becomes what people want. It's like if you ask people, do you want flavored honey? No. Make flavored honey, give them the choices, and you will see that's the one that they keep putting the spoon into the jar. And that becomes a disruption. So it's a latent. And so it's the same thing. It's like, oh, you know, I want to do a song with this and that music and that and that and this. Most people would say, I don't think it's a good idea. Then this person does it, and then it becomes a massive song. successful song. I mean, um, Bohemian Rhapsody, I think it's one of the three most successful songs in the history of music. And when they released the song, nobody wanted to put it on a record because it was too long. And that's what was killing it. So what I'm trying to say is it's very common that someone comes with a disruption as long as it responds to the consumer. But would the consumer don't always know that that's what they want. They only do it afterwards. It's kind of someone has to take the risk sometimes, but it has to be. So this is the what you need to communicate in a way that reveals the disruption in a way that it's argued. And the more better you argue it, the better you give the time to present it. So the worst way to present it is say, we're going to present a project called the Valley Hive, and it works at selling honey, which has been sold the same way for 500,000 years. Our idea is to sell it with flavored honey. Whoa, 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 whoa. This is too quick. Don't jump to the idea like this. Just go around the bush, show the problems, the difficulty, the fact that it's not easy to solve, the fact that the solutions is, like I said, reduce the price, increase the volume, do this, do that. So you have to show that you've looked at all the opportunities and then you looked at what's going on in the food industry, how do they break the ice? And so there's a momentum. It's like a script, it's like a movie script, right? It's like if you go too quick, you jump too quick, there's no suspense, there's no excitement, it's wasted. So you want to create the excitement when you make the presentation. Anyway, I gave you as much as I could on this. In fact, this is being recorded. You can go back and kind of re-listen to this again, and probably that will make a tremendous difference in your presentation if you were to do that. That's the beauty of those Zoom classes, is you can go back to the record. It's a huge benefit, but hopefully you get. Do you have any other questions about the Valley Hive or anything to do um, with the syllabus?
I don't. Yeah, you answered all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. And so, um, what I would like to do today is instead of taking a 15-minute break, because I'm just realizing the time went really fast. I'm sorry, I forgot to take a short little break. Is we'll finish earlier, let's say 20 minutes earlier. But I'm going to use the next 20 minutes just to go back to the concept of marketing and focus on some simple things just for right now. And then we'll call it, yes, because the time I'm correct, right? Yes. So we'll do another 20 minutes and then we'll call it a day for the first introduction. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Instead of taking a break now and coming back and finishing at 9, we'll finish at 20 minutes early. So when you are in a situation of making a decision in the market, is you have to look in your environment. And so looking in your environment means that you look at all the factors in the environment that have an impact, right? And so you have to do an analysis of your environment. Environmental analysis. So you've heard this because I know you've taken some strategy management classes with Professor de Gravel. So you've done some environmental analysis. When you've done this environmental analysis, you've looked at what is called the PESTLE analysis, right? So this is nothing new. The PEST analysis or the PESTLE analysis, where you're looking at the changes, the forecasts in terms of political, economical, social, and technological. So all of this, you have to look at it because they are creating potential benefits for the company, but they're creating potential problems as well. So these goes into what's called the SWOT analysis. Okay? So the SWOT analysis is made of two sections, the internal element and the external element. The internal is the strengths and weaknesses, and the external is the opportunity and the threats. So that's English. I don't think I said anything that was too complicated. However, it is a little complicated. What's complicated here is the strengths and weaknesses. So the section that is in blue is only related to the company itself. So what is good about this company? So I go to this one, things that the company do well and things that the company do not do well. The rule of thumb here is that internal analysis is easier to do because you're looking at simple things, like, you know, the thing you're going to find and people spend a lot of jump to first is they look at the Instagram page. You know, do they have a lot of subscribers? Do they have a lot of activities? Do they have a lot of posts? And all these different things. And most of the time, the clients, the 6, 7 clients we've had, they were all from bad to very bad. Never we had someone who could say is barely okay. They're always bad. So most of the time, I would say, the digital marketing, the social media tends to be something that is a weakness for most clients. Okay. Another thing that is very commonly a weakness is their budget. How much money do you have for marketing? And the answer is you're lucky if it's $2,000 per year. Usually it's really small. Another thing is how much experience do you have in marketing? So the answer for this question is often we don't have a lot of experience. And when they tell you that they have experience, when you go to details about what experience you have, then you find that they don't really have that much experience. Most people think that they have experience, but they don't. So it's all a question of what? So it must, so oftentimes, I thought there was a question. So it's oftentimes a question about misinterpretation of what is experience in something. So, however, you may find, and that's oftentimes true, that the singing is good, the energy is good, the, and these are the things that you're going to see by looking at the links. So I sent you 3 links, but you should also look, once you find these 3 links, and normally I don't really have to tell you that because my students are very curious. They're going to find more links than these. They're going to go back, dating and all this, find all kinds of things these people did, and sort of search for things and try to learn about them. And you will find that there's things that they are good and they've stopped doing sometimes that they should do more. And so all of this, you're going to create bullet points of strengths and bullet points of weaknesses. That's usually the first exercise and the easiest exercise to do for this class. Create those bullet points for the S and the W. Those bullet points are generated from you search on the internet, on digital information, and the interview of this Saturday, which will be sort of refined with the second and last interview of the client. Like I said, I forgot when it was, but the 14th, I think, yeah, the 14th of February. Okay, so that's internal. It's inside the company. Now, external, that's the one that's much more difficult. And within external, the one that is 20 times more difficult is the O of opportunity. So that's much more difficult. The O of opportunity is so first let's talk about the threats because it's easier for me to summarize it right now. The threat, what do you think is the main threat for a business?
Competition.
Exactly. That's very correct. The main threats are not just the competition, but if there was just one that you want to talk about is the competition as being the main, most common threat. Um, it is true, but for example, I work in various industry, and one of them I work in the wine, spirit, and sparkling wine industry. from Europe. And to right now, the worst threat is called Donald Trump in my industry. So it's not even the other brands of wine and spirit and champagne. It's the US president that just keeps raising the tariffs and creating quotas and all this. And so normally you don't call this president of America, you call this political threat, regulation threats, right? There's a kind of a more refined name for this. So uh, could it be the technology is a threat? Well, yeah, AI is a benefit and a threat. The internet is a benefit and a threat, right? I mean, the internet uh, with Napster and all of this uh, was a threat at a time, and now it became a benefit. So it's all evolves, um, and so oftentimes you have to look at the nuances. But so the threat is not too difficult. That's the point I'm trying to make at this time. But the one that is extremely difficult are the opportunities, and that's the one that will take you a while. Now, what do you mean by a while, Professor? Just be honest, be transparent. Well, I would say there is 30% of the time students that find the opportunity 10 days before the presentation. The A grade, the A quality opportunities are often, as much as a third of the time, found like in March, you know? The reality is, when should we be solid on our feet with good opportunities for the client? The sooner, the better. You know, 2/3 will find them in February, but there will still be 1/3 finding them in March at the last minute. Wow, that's very stressful. It is. It is because if you don't find the opportunity, your presentation is really weak. And so right now, all I'm saying, most of it doesn't sound English because you don't have the experience yet, but I have to start priming those concepts to you right now. And as we go along, you will see that it makes sense, that the opportunity is the problem and finding the opportunity. So opportunities are not what you are going to do. And I've wrote it several times, but I'm not going to read it every time. But the idea is that opportunities are not ideas. So you don't state what you're going to do into the opportunity section. You only provide facts, changes in the environment. Okay? So remember this. Not ideas, but facts. If you remember this, if today you in marketing all you remember is opportunities are facts and not ideas, that's amazing. It'd be really, really amazing. But you need more discussion on this to really understand what it means. So, so for example, you have some example which says, it repeats, it's not what you're going to do, the opportunity. So as the example of the opportunity is to sell more organic chicken. This is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because you say what you're going to do. So I don't know, you are Vance, Albertsons, Ralph's, and you're trying to increase your sales, and someone says, oh, I know what you need to do to increase your sales. Sell more organic chicken. That could not be placed into the section of opportunity because that sentence here is what? That sentence
It's an
is
idea.
an idea. It's just an idea. Sell more chicken. Sell more organic chicken. Therefore, you need to find the fact. And so the fact is that people want more organic chicken. So every time you talk about opportunities by saying what you should be doing, you're stating ideas, and in fact, you're stating tactics or maybe strategies. So when you talk about marketing, you talk about the opportunities, you talk about the tactics, you talk about the strategies. In the strategy section, you don't talk about opportunities, you talk about strategic ideas. In the opportunity section, you don't talk about ideas because that's when you talk about facts. So what happens is in each of the section, I should find what should be in that section and not something else. So that's the problem is when you start finding other things than the things that are expected in the section. And that's why you will do a draft. And those drafts, you know, it's it's also something that I do not talk to all the class about your draft, but just to each group because they're usually very messy at the beginning. There's more red from me than black from you because it's all inverted and all this. But it's very important to have a draft because it's easier for me to give you feedback and help you evaluate yourself, having something to give you back versus me keep talking and telling you about the theory and all of that. You have to practice and me to guide you with the practices. Okay, so now what's interesting here is we go into there's more boxes and all that. So the idea of opportunity is the best opportunities are the one that you can take advantage of. So usually they are the opportunities that you have the strength and the opportunities that you are better suited against your competitors, right? So um, if people want more organic chicken, is it Ralph or Whole Foods that is more suited to sell organic chicken? Whole Foods or Sprouts are famous for being retailers that sells organic food. If people want more and more and more and more organic chicken, being an organic retailer, you'll be better suited to take advantage of that trend which is growing where people want organic chicken. But that doesn't mean that Ralph, which is not famous for organic everything, should not be selling it, but they will be less suited. It'll be an opportunity which is less favorable for Ralph's than or for let's say Trader Joe's or let's say Aldi, even more so than Sprouts or there's a man I forgot the name of that very expensive supermarket. Um, yeah, there's
Carolina.
one. Hmm?
Gelson's.
Gelson's.
Gilson's, exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So Gilson, will be more suited for this. So what happens is the value of an opportunity comes from the fact that you are stating it correctly by just being facts and that you have the strength to initiate it, to match it, and that your competitors are not as good as you are. And so finding that balance is what's very difficult. And that's why you have to find all the elements, all the arguments, all the ingredients in order to build the argument to tell the clients what they should be doing based on those balance about here's your strengths and here's the opportunity and you have the strengths to go after those opportunities and your competitors are not as good as you in order to do these things and blah 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 and then that becomes a perfect script in order to convey confidence to the clients that they should go that direction because you found the right path, right? So one thing that I've noticed for many years is that sometimes the students, obviously it won't, I don't think it'll be the case, but I have some students that are business law students, for example. I have a class with 25 business law, 25 accountants, 25 finance. And then the business law students come and say, gee, it's funny because business law and marketing is very much the same, is we have to make a case, an argument case defending a position in order to make this person guilty or not guilty. And in marketing, it's the same. We have to make that case by collecting the evidence, hard data, facts, information in order to make the case. And it's the same method. And if you understand this, I don't know if you've done any law, something to do with legal, that's what it is you building a case to be an evidence to support your argument. Okay. Do you have any question on all of these at this moment?
Yes, Professor, I have a question
Yes.
about the academic process of how do you evaluate the material for your analysis in marketing?
Oh, how? Okay, so it's based on the sources. So you
Yeah.
want the sources to be as neutral as possible, sources as specialized expert as possible, as recent as possible, as unbiased as possible, like there's no conflict of interest,
Right.
um, and and related to the subject as much as possible. I mean, if you're trying to see, um, if you made, I don't know, cigarettes longer, what would you sell more cigarettes? And you ask for men, and and it's someone who's really expert and specialized, and they did it 2 weeks ago and so forth. But the data set is not a bunch of men, but it's a bunch of women. The problem here is there will be a lack of accuracy because there would be women being questioned. So that suddenly it would create an issue with reliability. So every
Or
time you make an argument is you have to show the confidence in the source that you got the argument in order to be able to have some level of confidence in the path that you're generating. Another thing that relates to this is people that like script, movie script. When you're in marketing, in a way, you're writing a script, like a story of what you think is the story of the client. But you don't make it as a script, which is just a creative script based on this vision, like you had in the shower or whatever, a shower vision. But it's really based on the data. And it's based on this data that you have this script of the path. And in your situation, it's going to be important because you do not. Another thing I want to say is the idea is it's long range. So what's long range? It's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Do you have to visualize what the client will do in 4 years? You don't have to. You have to visualize what they should do in 5 years. You don't have to. The idea is it needs to be long range, and therefore long range, the minimum, I would say it's 3. It is not a requirement. You have to have 4 and 5 years in order to get an A. No, you don't have to. But 3 is the minimum, I would say. Otherwise, it's not long term. Which means that you're free to, you're not really free to go less than 3. I just told you that I think 3 is the minimum. So you're not really free on there. But you're free to go beyond this. It is not necessary. It depends on your script. That's what I'm trying to say. There's scripts where you could visualize 3, 4, 5 years, and there's some script where suddenly it, it's you need a crystal ball to go beyond those 3 years, and then it's really making things up, you know. So what I'm just saying right now is very abstract, and so I don't want you to I don't know if it makes any sense at this time, but it's what I want to say is that you can't force things to make them fake. If you can do it, that's very realistic, up to 3, that's good enough. Okay. So just to finish, we just 40 minutes. I want to finish in this, just this short little exercise. Maybe I'll go on there. And so think for yourself. Do not answer. And I'm going to pick someone that I didn't hear today that I would love to hear their perspective. So which one of these two is an opportunity? 35% of pools in SoCal are in need of repair, according to the SoCal Bureau from 2015. Max could offer an online bidding platform for pool repair. And so I'm going to ask Jennifer Tapia. I see that you're there. What do you think it is? Which one is an opportunity?
I think it's number one.
Okay. Why would you say it's number one?
Just because it kind of demonstrates more like what the opportunity is, whereas number two is just kind of like, for me, a little vague. But yeah, number one's
So,
just more deep what the opportunity is.
so an opportunity is a
Or
fact
correct.
versus the other things, ideas are not opportunities. So if we go back to it, there is one that is an idea and one that is a fact. So based on this source from that date, they say that there is a fact that this many people are saying that they need their pool to be repaired. Just a fact, number one. versus number two is an ID. You know, what is the, now we are bordering the elements of entrepreneurship. What is the problem for a business that would want to do IDs? And I'm going to ask someone else. Let's ask Justin. What is the problem of businesses that would go for IDs? What would you say is the potential result of that?
Um, Clarifying question, would that be ideas with no opportunity? Is that
No, what's the danger of having businesses that say, "Oh, I'm going to start my business based on that ID," which is oftentimes the case. I would say 90%, maybe 95% of the time. If you ask a person, say, "Hey, you have a business?" Yeah. How? How- What was what was the start? Oh, I had an ID. Rarely they
um
start with a fact. They start with an ID.
yeah, I was gonna say that without starting with like a good foundation of like objective needs or facts from like what sort of
Exactly.
population you would be serving.
You said it. You said objective, and therefore the opposite is subjective. IDs are subjective, right? And sometimes the
Yeah.
problem with subjectivity is it starts from a passion. You know, I have this idea that all the ties should be orange. My favorite color is orange, and I'm going to start this business with orange ties. And then this person, 6 years after, is still struggling with it. Why? People don't want orange ties. Only you wanted orange ties. That was your idea because it's what you want, but it's subjective to you. So the beauty of objective thinking is it's based on facts. And even with facts, there's still a level of risks. But with ideas, it's a huge level of risk because it's very individual, it's very passionate, it's very emotional, it's very subjective. So I'll just finish with this, is you have to be very careful. But before I finish, I have one more. So we're going to try someone else. Um, what about Colby? What do you think this one is?
Okay, give me 1 second to read them.
Yes. So there's an opportunity to use online. Where to?
Um, I would say that number two is the one that's based on facts.
Why is that?
Um, wait, no, it would actually be the opposite because there, like, number one, the fact is that there is an opportunity, whereas number two, Max is just looking at his own skills.
Exactly. So it's good. You see, you fixed it. In the case of these two, they're both pretty bad, really, right? Because there's no sources, right? So they're both bad, but in one, it's just like, let's use your sources, your skills. So I'm good at this, so I'm going to do something that I'm good at without thinking about what the consumer wants. So it's very max driven, not consumer driven in number two. And in number one, is saying that technology is a way to become an opportunity to do certain things, right? So it's like when they launched eBay, is they say, oh, the internet is one way to sell used things like a swap meet, you know. And then they did it and it worked. They didn't do the right thing would be saying, the technology could allow this, and the consumer will want to use the technology in order to get the service. So you have to finish it by making sure that it's not just because the technology exists that it's going to create a success story, is you have to have the consumer that want to also use the factor. But 1 is better than 2, but it's still weak. Okay? So this is not the end of this. Is we're going to keep talking about this opportunity, strengths, weaknesses, and all that. There's going to be a lot of exercises, but you just got the flavor of it. Okay? Now, do you have any other questions for today?
I was going to say it was interesting on this because I went to 1 and then I was like, well, no, 2 would be makes more sense, but then I was like, oh no, I was right first time.
Yeah, you were right the first time.
Because
Yeah,
you're using the technology as the fact
as
or
the
the
facts.
technology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was very subtle. The technology is the fact. Versus the second one is using the strength of Max as the fact. But the strength is not, the strength is the strength. The technology that is becoming more available and more helpful is the fact. So, but you can't be just in love with the technology and then think everything's going to happen because you have the technology. So some businesses, that's what they do. They spend a ton of money in the technology and hope for the business to be better. And it doesn't because they just bought more technology, but they're not using it for the sake of solving a problem. What problem are you solving? All right. Well, hopefully you can see the value that will come from this class, and hopefully you will play your role to make it. It has to be me, it has to be you, and I know it has been amazing in the past, and I always look forward to teach this class because it's a real journey, and that's really what it's going to be. It'll be a journey between now and March, and it's going to be a lot of love and understanding, kind of what Casey just did. This analysis that you just did, Casey, that's kind of the healthiest thing you can do is I was wrong, but I figure why I was wrong, so I'm making progress. And that's awesome. Yes,
Right.
Dora.
Yeah, I just had a quick question.
Yes.
I see in the files where we can find that
Yes.
initial presentation that you started off with. Is there
Yes.
any we could find this presentation, or is this just for class sake?
Oh, well, yes. So what happens is if you go again to the files, you will have um, a PowerPoint of this, which is not 100% the same, but it's a summary of this. You also find a PDF summary of this. And if you go to the module, you will also find um, a video of this.
Got it. I see it all. Thank you.
And yeah, and then I'm going to save this and post it to each module so you can all go back to it again. So there's like many touch points, more than that you want, but that way you cannot say there's not enough. There's more than probably you want. Yes, Ashe as well.
Will quickly, did you say that 1 and 2 were weak because there's not a source?
Yes, there's no
Is it
sources. There's no
okay?
sources, and it doesn't talk about the problem that it's trying to solve. You see, so allow me to tell you one last small thing here. The number one opportunity is the consumer, what the consumer wants. And every time you have a fact that talks about what consumer want, you have the best opportunities. Like the flavored honey. Flavored honey in a blind test is far superior than the best honey in the world. And you will see this in the Valley Hype, and that's sort of the way you're gonna have to convey it, is that fact makes it so, I was gonna say so sweet, but really that's what it is. So now your biggest thing is to go back to the syllabus, go to Canvas, like Dora was doing, to just see what you need, and it's all there, and you'll find. And then to prepare for as much as you can by looking at Playita, and then meet with them, and we'll ask as many questions as we can. And then we're on good track.
Okay, thanks.
Looking
Goodbye.
forward. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
you too.
you.
Bye bye. See you on Saturday. Bye bye.